Hey everybody, I hope and pray that you're doing well. Today, as we come to our word from the Word, and today that word is what? What? Now, yesterday we talked about who and what that word is that maybe we're seeking a word from friends or a word from God. Most importantly, is what we need a word from God. That's who we need to be seeking. Today, Job even gets to the point where his question is what? And it's kind of with this mindset. Have you looked around to see what God has already done? How can we ever understand? How could we ever understand what he's doing? And you're going to see that a lot this week. I told you yesterday that a lot of the questions that we see Job asking really is going to stir up more questions in us. But he continues on, and we're just going to continue right where we left off yesterday in Job chapter 26. And I want you to listen closely to some of the words that Job uses to describe creation. And I'll come back to that. But Job chapter 26, starting in verse 5, reading down to the end of the chapter, verse 14, says, "The dead tremble, those under the waters and those inhabiting them. Sheol is naked before him, and destruction has no covering. He stretches out the north over empty space. He hangs the earth on nothing. He binds up the water in his thick clouds, yet the clouds are not broken under it. He covers the face of his throne and spreads his cloud over it. He drew a circular horizon on the face of the waters, at the boundary of light and darkness. The pillars of heaven tremble and are astonished at his rebuke. He stirs up the sea with his power, and by his understanding he breaks up the storm. By his spirit he adorned the heavens. His hand pierced the fleeing serpent." And I love verse 14. "Indeed, these are the mere edges of his ways, and how small a whisper we hear of him. But the thunder of his power, who can understand?" Just to think for a moment, I told you, any of those that have known me for any time, I get to be a little science geek or a little nerd there with some things. But, most recently, this James Webb telescope and just the magnificent pictures that we're getting back and able to see. And I tell you what, it for science, I know a lot of scientists that don't believe in God. I just cannot fathom the hopelessness that they're finding great things and they think it's opening up all this stuff about the past, when in all actuality, every time we're seeing a better picture and a greater picture, it just begins to help us understand even more how insignificant we are in the grand scheme of things. But yet, with that insignificance, God loved us enough to send his son Jesus to die for us. I love the fact that he says these things, that he hung the earth on nothing. I mean, you look out and the pictures that we have from space of the earth, it's sitting on nothing. Who can explain it? Right? I mean, we can't even explain gravity, really. A lot of things that we know scientifically now that Job knew by faith. He knew by inspiration of God. I love the circular horizon and how many people had argued that the earth was flat for centuries. And he said it, if they'd only looked to the word, maybe they would have seen that. Even to look to the clouds that he says, look, they're full of water, but they don't bust. They don't burst until it's time. And the way that the sea is stirred up, and he goes on and on. And he says, these are the mere edges. And I couldn't help but think about, like I said, with this new telescope that's going out and showing us all these things. And I mean, that are, just seemingly ungodly amounts of miles and miles away from us, light, and start measuring them in light years away. And that's just the edges. What we see is barely even a string on the fringes of his garment. But that kind of is what Job is getting at. He says, look, even what I think I know I don't know it all. Now, he does get that attitude of acting like he knows more than he does, but his friends were really trying to act like they had all the knowledge, that they had figured it out, and that Job must be guilty. But I just wonder today, I wonder if we'll just take a moment to pause and think, have I treated God as though I've got it all figured out? Have I treated God as though I know what he's up to? Have I treated God as that I already know the way that he works? Because you understand that the more we know about God, the more we find out there is to know about God. It's like these pictures that they're sending. Every picture just enhances our curiosity that much more. To think, oh, well, how much further does it go? What else is in God's creation that we don't even know about? Billions of stars, billions and billions of stars, and he knows them all by name. But it says that he made the stars also, just like an afterthought. How much more will he do for you and I that we do not even, we can't comprehend? Right? Scripture tells us that it's even more than we can ask or think that he's willing to give. So today, will you limit your understanding of God? Will you put a limit on it and say, well, I can only know this much? Or will you even put a limit on it to say, I already know all that I want to know, or I already know all that I desire to know? Or will we understand, we only know the fringes, we only know the edges, but I want to know him more and more every single day. God bless you, and I pray you have a great day.